Our guest today is no stranger to Southern Illinois. Cindi Canary is the executive director of the Independent Map Amendment. Along with Paul Simon and Bob Custra, she helped found the Illinois Campaign for Political Reform and served as its executive director. She's also served as the executive director of the Illinois League of Women Voters. Cindi, welcome back to Carbondale.
Good afternoon. It's very nice to be here. I always love to do things with the Simon Institute. David and John Jackson very graciously published a paper on redistricting that my colleague Kent Redfield and I wrote, and I am here to spare you the pain of reading it. Hopefully we can have redistricting isn't generally thought of as a jolly, happy-go-lucky topic, but I will do my best. I want to give you a little background to start. And redistricting is a process that we do every 10 years. It's how we map out our state and set up our legislative districts. It follows the census, and it looks at where people have reorganized themselves in a state where we move quite a bit. There are very few rules in our state constitution to govern redistricting. In essence, districts must be substantially equal in population. They need to be contiguous. You can't, start a district up in Rockford and then pick up the tail end down in Carbondale. But other than that, there are not a lot of rules on how we draw maps. There is one very important piece of legislation, though, that we must follow, and that is the Federal Voting Rights Act, that ensures that districts are representative and that communities of color are allowed to form together to get representation. The next time we draw districts will be in 2021 after the 2020 census, and the next time we would vote in those new districts would be 2022. So the current process really can be summed up by saying that legislators in Illinois are able to pick their voters rather than voters being able to pick their legislators. Politicians, elected officials, draw our maps. It is generally a closed-door process. There are often tons of hearings all over the state. There's a lot of dog and pony that goes on, but once that map is drafted, they don't want to talk to you. So what happens is, if the parties can't agree, if the Republicans and the Democrats cannot agree on a map, and that is what has happened, then we go to a winner-take-all system where literally we pull a name out of a hat. When the Constitution was drafted in 1970, according to my dear late friend Dawn Netsch, Dawn said, "We figured it would be so humiliating to make the legislature pull a name out of a hat that they would never, ever do it." Well, they do it. And in fact, we're the only state in the whole country that uses this kind of winner-take-all system. Both parties have benefited from this. And I want to be perfectly clear. This is not a Democratic problem. This is not a Republican problem. this is a problem with the way we draw our maps. We draw our maps for partisan advantage, for incumbent protection. If the Republicans have the pen, that's what they try to do. If the Democrats have the pen, that's what they try to do. So just to be absolutely clear, this is not partisanship. This is about reforming the process. So as I said, the only requirements, the districts have to be relatively compact, contiguous, and substantially equal in population. District lines are largely drawn by the legislative leaders. Not that the speaker himself necessarily is in there at the computer doing it, but and the way the maps are drawn reinforce the power of leaders, because the leaders determine whether you have a district that is favorable to you, or sadly you have a district where your house isn't. So it really is a way to both reward and to punish legislators, and to do all that you can to enhance and build up partisan advantage and protect the incumbents of your party. The Supreme Court has actually said this is okay. Go figure. But the Supreme Court has recognized and said, yes, you can draw maps for partisan advantage. And in Illinois, we excel at that. So the legislative leaders in drawing the map can really make or break a rank and file legislator. So it is really important, and it does reinforce their power. There are two ways that we can change this system in Illinois. The first is, the simpler way to do it would be that the legislature could put an amendment on the ballot so that we could change our Constitution. I wouldn't bank on that. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we can expect those with the vested interest in the status quo suggesting change. The other way we can make change is through a citizens' initiative. And as you all know, Illinois doesn't use citizens' initiatives very often. We're not like California or Oregon or some of those states. And for the most part, I think that's probably a good thing. But it does mean that the threshold for doing a citizens' initiative is very high. It is like trying to thread a needle without my reading glasses. It's very hard. What we have to do is we have to get about 290,000 valid signatures. And the provision that we have to fall under is the structure and procedure of the legislature. So it's a legislative clause. It is a very narrow window, and our Supreme Court our state Supreme Court has not always been completely consistent on what structure and procedure means. Or maybe I should say what the word "and" means, but we will find out. So Independent Maps is in the business of trying to amend the commission through a citizens' initiative. Many of you know that this has been tried before. I spoke to somebody from the league. The league has been sort of spearheading this throughout the decade in the state of Illinois. They made a first attempt in 2010, a really great attempt that unfortunately was sorely underfunded. There was another attempt in 2014 that had more resources, but found itself in court. And to make lemonade out of lemons, we got a very thoughtful and lengthy court decision from the circuit court from Judge Mary Mikva, the daughter of Abner Mikva, who wrote in her decision that in fact she believed that redistricting did qualify under the Illinois Constitution, but that we needed to really narrow and focus the language, take away some of the qualifying verbiage we had in there. So we used that decision as a roadmap and rewrote in a very focused way the amendment. It says up here that we have to gather more than 300,000 valid signatures. We have gathered 310,000 signatures so far. Now I can't tell you they're all valid. In fact, I talked to somebody who we're checking our signatures, we're validating them as we go along. And I talked to somebody who actually told me that one very kind individual in the state of Illinois had already signed 65 times. People are lonely, what can I say? But so I hope that you will all sign. I put petitions out on the table outside the door, but please do not sign 65 times. There's really no need. Once we get the signatures we need, and we're aiming to get 600,000 signatures, there is no doubt we will be challenged on this. We have already faced some challenges. The challenges, it's not a secret, they are coming from the speaker. He has held the pen the last 2 cycles, and even though next time around he may very well go back into, pull a name out of the hat, I guess he feels better about that than this. So we are trying to get about 600,000 signatures so that even if a few people sign 65 times, we'll be in good shape. But we're not naive, and once we get ourselves on the ballot, we fully expect rigorous legal challenges. We are preparing for them. We are working with a team of lawyers. Mayor Brown in Chicago is our law firm, and they have been really terrific. But the speaker also has some really terrific lawyers. So credit where credit's due there. This will be hard fought. Once we win those legal battles, which we are going to do, then we're going to have a really hard battle to get the voters to go down to the bottom and vote for an initiative. Initiatives are different than candidate elections. As a candidate, you need 50% plus 1. We're going to need 60%. Which means we really need to reach out broadly. We need Democrats, we need Republicans, we need people throughout the state, we need people in rural areas, we need people in the city, we need people from every walk of life, every ethnic group. This is really one of this we are the world kind of things that we got to get going here. So it's going to be a long battle, so invite me back because I'll give you updates. This is just a quick history of the kind of history on this. In 1970, we enacted the new Constitution. the Constitution where they would be too humiliated to ever, go to a tiebreaker system. 81, they went to a tiebreaker system. And interestingly, in 81, a very young Michael Madigan was actually credited with drawing a very good map for the Democrats, and he was rewarded soon thereafter with the speakership, a job he's had for most of my life. So, in 91, the Republicans won the map. When they drew the map, they were able to take back the Senate. Look at my ones have fallen off there. Anyway, in 2001, the Democrats drew the map. In 2011, as you know, we had Governor Quinn, and the Democrats had both chambers of the legislature, so they just had the consolidated power to do the map. But again, this is something that is really an equal opportunity game. If next time around the Republicans had the map, I have no doubt that they would be my opposition, not the speaker. I love this. I took this off the the Abraham Lincoln Museum. Who knew they had a revolving picture of the hat? It's really funny in a really sad kind of way. I think this might make Abraham Lincoln cry, but we use a replica Lincoln hat to draw the names out of. So that's how we do it here. So there are a lot of tricks of partisan map making, and none of them serve us. And that's the point I really want to underscore. Representation should be about representing the concerns of our communities. We've got a lot of good people in our legislature, and I think those good legislators who have their fingers on the pulse of their districts, they have nothing to worry about. We want them there. We will re-elect them. But right now we've got a lot of gamesmanship. Things that happen. The party that draws the map places the other party's incumbents in one district to force colleagues to run against each other. It draws the other party's incumbents' homes out of their existing districts to make a move if they win, to make them relocate their family. Groups populations together based on their partisan voting history rather than necessarily on ethnicity, economic factors, geography, or how we ourselves define our communities. And it creates as many safe districts as possible. Voters get castigated a lot. We get shamed every election season, like, nobody turned out to vote. What's the matter with these people? Well, we don't get many choices. And, I'm from Chicago, and I'll tell you a story about when I took my son, good mother, very civically involved. I take my 8-year-old to the poll with me, and I think it was a mayoral election. I think it was a daily election. and I said, then here's the little thing, and you do this. And my son looks at me and he goes, well, why? Nobody's running against him. What's the point, Mom? And for many of us, that's a really good question. In the primaries, we often find, in the neighborhood of 70, 80% uncontested primaries. That is particularly true up in northern Illinois. In the last general election in 2014, 60% of all seats were uncontested. This does not motivate people to go out and vote, nor does this invite new ideas, innovators, problem solvers. I think there isn't a single person in this room, regardless of what your political persuasion is, who wouldn't say this state isn't in a boatload of trouble. You know, we are facing just a horrific situation. And as far as I can tell, what's going on in Springfield is just a big stare down. This is not helping us. This is not helping people in need. This is not helping people who are worried about their jobs. This is not helping people who are living in marginal situations. We are in a crisis position, and we need some new ideas, and we need some new ideas quickly. So one solution, and this will, after my little lecture on the budget, let me just say, my solution won't solve the budget. But we need to change the way that we draw districts. We need to create a diverse, a nonpartisan commission that's got the authority to draw state legislative districts in a fair and transparent manner. And I really want to underscore the transparency part of it. You know the community you live in. You know it, and your input is important. You know when the lines have been fiddled with, and your input is important there as well. To do this, I think, will provide us with the ability to have more competition, more ideas, more participation, and ideally, more voter turnout. This is the process, and I'm not gonna do a deep dive into this, but essentially, it would be an 11-member commission. The commission, in the legislative language, worked too long in the legislature, this is an initiative. In the initiative language, requires that the commissioners reflect the diversity of our state, geographic, ethnic, partisan. It would have Democrats, Republicans, and independents. I have heard several elected officials say, redistricting is really complicated. You need to leave it to the politicians. Oh, good, that was exactly the response I wanted. I mean, my response is, I don't know what, there's like 12 million of us. Surely we can figure this out. You know, we know our communities. We know what we want our government to achieve. We live in a representative democracy, and somehow we're losing that representation piece of the puzzle. So basically, 7 of the members would be drawn based on diversity. Each legislative leader would be able to appoint 1 member, but there would be no majority of Republicans or Democrats. One other aside, sometimes people say, well, who would want to do this? You know, who would want to travel around the state? It's a beautiful state, really, come on. Who would want to travel around the state and, deal with all this demographic stuff, all these numbers, all these lawyers? And I kind of wondered that myself. California, which has established an independent redistricting commission, had 30,000 people apply to be on it. So I figure we can beat them. and amazing people, people from small businesses, people that they had a demographer, they had a civil rights expert. I mean, really a unique commission who took the job very, very seriously. And I think, although we are very different than California, we're very lucky that we've got a model to look to and learn from. The guiding principle of this is voting rights. We are governed right now by the Federal Voting Rights Act. This would enshrine the Voting Rights Act into the Illinois Constitution. So voting rights would be the first criteria that would have to be figured out by the drawers of our maps. There's language in the initiative that says legislative districts shall not dilute or diminish the ability of racial or language minority communities to elect candidates of its choice, including when voting in concert with others. This is what in the parlance of the fascinating redistricting world we call crossover districts. And to the extent practical, districts shall respect the geographic integrity of communities sharing common social and economic interests. Now, in a city like Chicago, you're not going to, the voting rights piece will outweigh the geographic piece. In other communities, it is easier to keep the communities together. These are the kinds of challenges that this commission will have to face, but these are the guidelines that they will have to follow in doing so. The other fundamental guideline is nonpartisanship. And there is language in this initiative that says the redistricting plan shall not either intentionally or unduly discriminate against or intentionally or unduly favor any political party, political group, or particular person. The commission, in fact, is only able to look at political data to ensure that they are in compliance with the VRA. So I told you we've tried this before. Why are we successful this time? Why will we be successful this time? Well, first of all, because you're all going to help me. I know the lady in green is going to help me. We started earlier. We were able to take advantage of the summer months, collect a lot of signatures. We are well on our way to getting our signatures together. We have been fortunate in having raised quite a bit of money. We are using professionals. We are validating signatures as we go along so that every time I get a name, it is checked against the voter rolls. We have a very good legal team. And I think that we just have really excellent citizen momentum. I have a board that is composed of Democrats and Republicans, a very diverse board, ethnically, politically, geographically. And they're there because they believe this is the right thing. And I think that as we talk to citizens around the state, they too believe this is the right thing. So I think that we really will make it this time, and I think it will have a huge impact on our state. Got this, I haven't updated this. These are a few of our supporters. We actually have a couple pages of supporters. One in particular I would draw your attention to is the Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau has been absolutely fantastic. They are superstars. The Farm Bureau has petitions and will collect petitions, so drop by your local Farm Bureau. So this is our board of directors. You may recognize Sheila Simon, Perry's wife. from Carbondale. And then just, to sum this up, if you're frustrated by government in Illinois right now, if you think things aren't working, if you think things are stagnant in Springfield, if you believe in one person, one vote, if you believe in representation, if you believe your voice should be heard, then this initiative's for you. And I really hope that I can count on you and call on you to help us in gathering signatures and getting out the word and changing the way we do business in Illinois. And this is just the small print legal disclaimer. Everything's reported to the State Board of Elections. I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Thank you, Cindi. Before we go to questions, I have one other announcement to make. I want to recognize Senator Dave Luchtefeld in our audience here. Cindi said one thing just sort of in jest, that she didn't think that a reform like this would affect the state budget. I think it would. And the reason I say that is when a state gerrymanders, it creates a bunch of safe districts for one party and a bunch of safe districts for the other party. And there's very few marginal districts. And how do you get elected to the legislature? You win your primary. In a safe Republican district, that means you have to keep the conservatives happy, the Tea Party people. In the Democratic district, you have to keep the liberals happy. You have to keep the labor movement happy. This is rational politics. But in our environment today, what that means is it makes it very difficult to compromise. In a state like Illinois, with the fiscal problems that we're going to face for probably the next 10 years, this state is going to have to cut spending. It is going to have to raise taxes. If you want a taste of what's going to come, look at the proposal in Chicago to try to get that city on a correct path. But with the current system you don't have a situation where a Republican legislator dares vote to raise taxes, or he or she is going to get Tea Partied. And a Democratic legislator can't vote to cut spending because they're going to make the labor unions unhappy. And so you have this huge divide that penalizes cooperation and does not encourage it. If you have a bunch of marginal districts, a bunch of competitive districts, you in fact do create a situation where there is a political reward for the politician who can reach out and work across party lines. So I wanted to maybe disagree with you on that one comment, although you were being somewhat facetious.
I just meant that this wouldn't resolve the budget problem in the next 18 months.
I'll have the first question, and then I'll let you take your questions. Does this affect congressional district lines?
No, I'm glad you asked that. It does not. And the reason it does not is that congressional redistricting is not mentioned in our Illinois Constitution. And the feeling was that had we added that, that would be an invitation to be disqualified. Our hope, though, is that if we are successful, that this will create some momentum for changing those things. I would also like to recognize Senator Luchtenfeld, because Senator Luchtenfeld is an example of one of the very, very good legislators who has been affected by the very, very bad practice of redistricting. So I, for one, even though I live hundreds of miles away, am sorry to see you leaving. Yes.
Why is this controversial? What's the rationale against it? Let's use a microphone.
He asked why this is controversial and what's the rationale against it, and I perhaps am the wrong person to ask. The opposition in 2014 and again this time is really coming out of the Democratic Party. Not rank and file Democrats, not Democratic citizens, voters, but the Speaker. And I think it really is about a loss of control. A sense that, there's a sense we know best. And this system works for us. We know how to manipulate it. We know how to get our guys in, and that's it.
I don't think you've answered. What is the rationale given? What is the rationale given?
Okay.
Not why is it opposed?
Yes, all right. The rationale. In fact, a letter dropped about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, from a group called the People's Map, with an address in Chicago but a postmark in Springfield. And I think this letter sums up the objections we're going to face, what we're going to have to deal with. And it said basically two things. If we changed redistricting and we went to an independent commission, we would be responsible for the destruction of both minorities, minority power in this state, and the middle class. It's a lot to take down. It was a very hyperbolic letter, but I think that the arguments are going to be based on passion and fear, and we have had a long, ugly struggle for voting rights in this country, and this is something that nobody wants to. Well, very few people want to see slip away, and so it's playing those cards and picking at those issues when in fact I think we can turn around and say, but in fact this enshrines the Voting Rights Act. In fact, this would give us stronger protections. It will be an emotional argument. Yes.
The last time I helped pass signatures, the most common question that I was asked after I tried to explain what this meant was, well, why should we expect it to be any different? I don't know if it's going to change anything. And I need an answer if we're going to do it again.
Okay. Well, first of all, we never know till we try. But I think the answer is about creating a climate where competition can flourish and compromise is possible. As David explained, we've got, things are very polarized. This is not a magic wand, but it can start to create a system where new voices, new ideas can break through, where you don't need, the blessing of the political establishment to try to run in a seat. And I think more than anything else, it is about those new ideas, new ways, and finding some space to break down the gridlock. Because I don't think, maybe that gridlock is making 3% on this side and 3% on that side happy, but the other 94% of us are just left out in the rain. Yes, sir.
Carl, can you use a microphone? Some of us have a hard time hearing.
Can you give us any idea of how many states utilize a system such as you're proposing versus how many states utilize a system, say, similar to what Illinois has?
Yeah, they're kind of all over the map. There are California and Arizona have the most similar systems to what we are proposing right now. There are probably another 10 or 12 states that use a commission, but they are more of a political commission as opposed to an independent commission. No other state uses the winner-take-all system, but and the rest tend to have the legislature do it. One thing that's kind of interesting is right now seems to be a moment in time where there's a lot of focus on redistricting and how we draw the maps. Maryland and Virginia are looking at doing initiatives. Michigan is looking at doing an initiative. Ohio will have an initiative on the ballot in 2015. There is litigation in Wisconsin right now on this. So there's some activity in Florida as well. So there seems to be this kind of critical mass of change. One of the places that is always mentioned and pointed to is our neighbor Iowa. Iowa is it's a very different state. It is demographically very different. It does not have the diversity that we have. It also has the benefit of rather more normal state boundaries. Our state's all like this, so it's easier for them to draw nice squares. So Iowa uses a kind of a hybrid system where they've got a redistricting staff that works out a model, but then it goes to the legislature. So there are a number of different approaches.
It seems to me that the most important part of this is the prohibition of using past voter history as a criteria for drawing districts. So what kind of language does this proposal have that's going to guard against that?
It specifically says that. So it basically it says that you cannot take into account partisan data. There is one exception, and that is essentially the commission can check their work to ensure compliance with the Voting Rights Act. But it is explicit in the initiative language that they cannot use partisan data in the mapping process.
In anticipating the legal challenges, what do you anticipate the legal challenge to be? That this cannot be changed by initiative, or is it something else? I mean, I know you expect challenges to signatures and things like that, but what is the
I'm expecting a miserable summer next year. My guess is that it will be on constitutional grounds, that it will be that this is somehow not in compliance with that structural and procedural clause. So that would be my anticipation. And that is, kind of what the lawyers are working on and thinking about and preparing, and have been from the day we drafted this. So we will see.
Has you or any group you know using your criteria drawn up a model map of what it might look like as compared to the one today?
No, but my friend David Yepsen would like to do that. He told me at dinner last night he wanted to do that. So let's hand it over to him. Oh, he says he needs some funds to do that. I will tell you, just as kind of an aside, and I think it's time for us to break, but in California, it was very interesting. A lot of people fear that, oh, you do this and, the state suddenly just politically changes overnight, In California, what they found was the political composition of their assembly did not change. So it's a Democratic assembly, it remained a Democratic assembly. But in the primary, they did a somewhat massive house cleaning of incumbents. Although they left the really good ones. Thank you very much.